Welcome back to Gloves Up Garage. This one's taking me a little bit to do. I've got an update for you guys about the Marauder. This car is going to leave for a little bit. You won't see it in the background. You won't see it on the channel. I've got to take it to the transmission shop. And unfortunately, I took it out for a drive a couple of weeks ago and had an issue where I didn't feel like the transmission was shifting correctly. So I got it home and I checked the fluid. And for those of you that don't know, there's the dipstick for the transmission back there. So I pulled that dipstick out, checked it, hoping it was just a little low. And what I found was not good. I'll go ahead and pull this out for you guys. Basically, just reach back there and grab it. And you can see the fluid should be kind of a bright red color. It is not. It is very brown. And it's hard to tell, and I don't really see any on the stick at the moment. There's a little bit there in those crosshatch areas. There's some debris and a little bit at the bottom of the stick at the pointed area. Yeah, that debris is metallic. And what that basically means is I get this back into the dipstick tube. What that means is this transmission is on its way out. I'm very lucky that it's still moving under its own power at this point. So what I will have to do, get this up to my transmission guy, basically. So when I talked to him, back in the day, he used to allow you to bring him a transmission. He would rebuild it. You could take it back home, put it back in the car. He ran into an issue. He didn't really go into detail. He prefers not to do that anymore. Obviously, I could pull the transmission and take it to him, and that really wouldn't affect anything, but he likes to put the transmission back into the vehicle to make sure that the cooler gets flushed, to make sure all the lines are hooked up correctly. The main thing is making sure that the converter, the torque converter, actually gets seated back into the transmission, engaged into the pump, and that there's no issues with alignment to the flywheel or anything like that. So I've decided I'm going to go ahead and just take the car to him and allow him to pull it, rebuild it, and then put it back in. Now, while it's there and while it's out for, obviously, a rebuild, we're going to do a few upgrades to it. We'll discuss that a little later down the road. I'm going to go ahead and change the torque converter to an aftermarket torque converter, a little higher RPM range. There's some billet parts that we're going to put in the transmission to improve them for eventually an upgraded supercharger to go on this car, which I don't have that yet, but I know in the future I will supercharge it. So coming over to the red Marauder, this car, other than the supercharger, the suspension things that I've pointed out in one of the last videos, the car is bone stock. The bottom end of the engine is stock. The transmission is stock, other than a pan that has a drain plug on it to make fluid changes easier. These transmissions in these cars, in the Crown Vics, in the town cars, they will hold a pretty decent amount of power. About 450, 500 is about the point where you really have to start to do some upgrades to them to make them last longer. But from the factory, they are very good transmissions. It's a 4R70W. They use them in a lot of Ford vehicles, F-150s, V8 Explorers, your GT Mustangs, your Mach 1 Mustangs. They all had the 4R70W in them. So they're a very good, robust transmission. It's not a perfect transmission by any means. It's not as nice and strong as like the 6R80 or the 10R80s, but they're still a very good transmission and much better than the AODE and the AOD that it replaced. So we know that that transmission will hold the power. I just want to go ahead and do some upgrades to, let's just say, make sure that it holds a lot more power than what this one is putting out. And the Lincoln's making a really good storage shelf for the moment, but the Lincoln is going to leave next week. I've got to get a project off of my car trailer that will be featured on the channel sometime in the future, but currently is not able to move under its own power, so it's on the car trailer. We're going to get that off. I'll get this up onto the car trailer, get it loaded up, and get it off to the frame shop. So it will be out of the picture. The garage is actually going to look pretty empty for a while. There will be a car coming in that's going to sit in this spot for a while. I'll probably do a little bit of a few videos on it just to kind of go through what that car is and what's going to be done with it while it's here. But we will have a couple of empty bays while these two are away at shops. So the Explorer is something I've been working on a little bit. I haven't done any videos on it. It's just a lot of small stuff. you saw it in the background of one of the videos where I was doing the fuel pump on it. I got that complete, did a fuel filter. The truck would not run would not rev over about 2,500 RPM. It would stall out. Using a laptop with a program called ForeScan, I plugged up to it, ran a bunch of different tests. It wasn't really throwing any codes. It did throw a knock sensor code and a vacuum leak code. So I fixed the knock sensor, replaced it. I did intake manifold gaskets, which are quite common for these 4 liters to go bad. And after doing all that, it still would not rev over 2,500 to 3,000 RPM. It would just fall on its face. I kept watching the numbers in there, and then I eventually realized in there you could run a test, which is a key on engine running test. It basically goes through all the sensors, all the circuits, making sure that everything is getting a signal the way that it should. Immediately that popped up that it was a mass air meter that was not, the circuit in the mass air meter was not connected. So I did a cross reference on Rock Auto, found out that that mass air meter is exactly same as the 0304 Lincoln Town Car. And if you remember back to that parts lot that I got, I had an extra mass air meter in there, so I swapped it in, and I'm glad to say the Explorer is running and driving. Now I'm just going to go through and do a tune-up and some other basic maintenance to it. We're going to get some tires because you can't see the other side. That right front tire continues to go flat no matter how many times I refill it. But this is a 99 Explorer, and for being a 99, it's in really good shape. And the Expedition that jammed me up there for a few weeks, it's still here. I do plan to sell the vehicle. I'm gonna pull out my light bar, my siren, all the emergency equipment out of the vehicle, and we're gonna put this one up for sale. And there's a pretty good reason for that. So the reason that I was thinking of selling the Expedition, and going back several videos, I talked about selling the Marauder as a possibility. For the last 3.5 years, I've been an auto appraiser with a very large insurance company. And over those 3.5 years, the job changed quite a bit to the point where I really wasn't happy with what I was doing every day, and some of the struggles and the stress that I faced from that job. So I've recently changed positions to another carrier, another insurance company. And with that, I lose the company car that I had with that field appraiser position. So without that daily driver, I need to get something reliable, something newer. And my thought process was I could sell the Marauder, I could sell the Expedition, come up with a decent amount of money to put down on a much nicer, newer, larger Expedition. So what I was looking at, 2018, 2021 Expeditions, really thinking about an XLT, a Limited, something that's got all the nice options like, leather, heated, cooled seats, and all that kind of stuff. Really looking for one that's got a tow package so that I can tow around some of the junk projects we've got here. Something that'll haul the whole family. We can go on vacation. We don't have to go rent a vehicle to take us to and from, because my wife's 2008 Dodge Ram is on limited time. It's got a little over 100,000 miles on it. It's going to need a head gasket very soon. And that's primarily what I use as a tow vehicle. The Expedition does not have a tow package. It's got 220,000 miles. And while there's nothing majorly wrong with it now, mechanically speaking, it's only a matter of time with 220,000 miles before something else breaks on that truck. And I don't want it to leave us stranded while we're hauling something around or while we get the family out or whatever. And let's face it, it's a police vehicle. It's got vinyl seats in the back, cloth seats up front. It would be nice to have something like that that's just big enough that we can haul everybody and does everything we need. So I was, again, going to sell those two vehicles to come up with a down payment. Now that the Trans is gone and the Marauder, I don't want to sell it. I don't want to take the hit on the value of selling a car like that with a major mechanical issue. There's no way I could bring it to myself to lie to someone and say, oh, no, this car is perfectly fine, and send it down the road for $10,000 or better. I could not do that. And again, I don't want to take the hit on selling it with the issue for half price or something. So that's where we're at. The Marauder's not going anywhere. It's up to the Trans shop. We're going to sell the Expedition, and I'm going to see what else I can come up with, not vehicles that are on the channel or anything like that, to come up with a down payment for that Expedition. So that's where we're at on everything for the moment. We'll get the Marauder up to the Trans shop, get the Lincoln to the frame shop, and get back to work on the red Marauder very soon.
I'll have some more videos coming out. We're going to get on to the next update on the Red Marauder very soon. We'll get some parts coming in for it, and we'll get back to work. And I'll have those videos up as fast as I can possibly get them. Working from home, definitely going to speed up the process of getting these videos completed and getting them out because I'll obviously not have to drive back and forth to work. So I'll be able to spend a little bit more time. I can come out here on my lunch breaks and a little sooner in the evenings than I have in the past. So with all that being said, thank you for watching. Thanks for each and every comment and like. I definitely appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already subscribed to watch the updates on all this junk that I work on. Remember to stay gloved up.